So I'd just like you to introduce yourself. I think you'll do a better job of that than I will.
Sure. I'm Lauren Reyes. I am a co-CEO and co-founder of Breastfeeding Success. I also am an IBCLC, which is an international board certified lactation consultant, and I have been for the past 15 years. I've been in practice as a lactation provider for 20 years. And I am currently pregnant with my 6th child. And I've also adopted 2 boys.
Okay. Many, many children, given birth 5 times already, going to be doing it again. You're my boss. You do many, many things. But I asked you here to talk about specifically being pregnant at an advanced maternal age. So AMA is the term that they're using now. Used to be geriatric pregnancy. As I was doing research for this week's article, I was reading about how sometimes people even still are using this, like in documentation, elderly, to describe a person being over 35 in pregnancy. So you're here to kind of just answer some questions about what that is like, because frankly, a lot of people who come take our classes and engage with our services are AMA, advanced maternal age. And I had someone in a group just recently who was older than you. And it is, I know. And so it is definitely not unusual, but it's kind of a big deal, or at least a big deal gets made of it a lot of times, or maybe we blow it up a little bit. And so I wanted to write an article about this topic to kind of just really look at the evidence about why this is kind of a big deal and what people might be able to expect. So how old are you, Lauren?
Sure. So I am 45 years old. Okay. And people keep talking to me about how they feel it, and I don't feel it. I think people tell themselves that they feel it, but if you stay active and you continue to take care of yourself, I would assume you would maintain energy levels. Maybe I just haven't hit the threshold yet, but I feel better than when I was in my 30s, for sure.
Okay, so I know some of these things about you. You do a lot to keep yourself fit, and you eat well, and so you do these things. You've been doing these things since before you got pregnant with this baby. So you feel like even though you're 45, you feel as good or better than when you were pregnant, younger?
Yeah, I definitely, because I didn't know some of the things I know now about my increased need for sleep and the fact that it's normal that I'm crying about nothing in the middle of the day. I would fight it so hard, just taking the naps or taking the rest I need. And from a nutritional standpoint, certainly, I definitely know a lot more tricks now about how to keep myself going. Often for me, it's related to low blood sugar. If I start to have kind of a tired moment. So I know kind of the snacks that I need to eat and the classes that I want to take, like do I want to take prenatal yoga or different things. So I feel like you're more prepared in many ways.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've learned, right? You've trial and error. For people who are in their first pregnancy at an advanced maternal age, like what are some, like, would you share some of the specific things that you're doing for yourself? Like what kinds of snacks specifically, and what kinds of classes are really helping you the most?
Certainly. Thank you for asking. So I got really early in the pregnancy, started going to prenatal yoga, which has been a mixed bag. It's been really good for me personally while I'm there, but I haven't really connected as much with the other moms. They are significantly younger, but I think it's more that they have so fewer children than I do. So I think it's a little overwhelming when they're like, oh my gosh, you're you're on your sixth, and I don't know if it's necessarily the age thing, but certainly I think that can be like people just assume when you have more than 3 kids that you know what you're doing, and maybe you don't need as much support, and that's certainly not the case. So I would say, yeah, prenatal yoga is great. You're going to meet people your age. As you know, our entire maternal population is aging in most of the world. People are foregoing having children until later when they have financial freedom or at least stability. And I think that makes perfect sense for a lot of people. So it's pretty common to meet moms that are in their late 30s and their 40s. And it seems to me that the more metropolitan of an area that you're in, the more you're going to find that. And of course, we have access to reproductive technology. And I think we're going to just be seeing this trend for the long term. And I'm really glad people are doing it, because we're showing that it is very safe to have a child later. And certainly there are high rates of sickness in all moms, regardless of their age. So it's just, a lot related to disease of affluence and our diets, etc. So in terms of classes, definitely prenatal yoga has been great. I've been doing a lot of that. I'm sure everybody's aware there's so many apps for exercise, but I got really into doing Pilates apps because I was running a lot at the beginning of my pregnancy, and it was horrible. It was not. So maybe that is the age thing, because I recently met a patient who ran a marathon at 26 weeks. And I was like, there is just no way. I couldn't do it. Also, my midwife was like, absolutely not. No, you are not doing this. So for me, doing a daily practice of Pilates has been super, super helpful. And as far as snacks goes, I used to think that I had to keep bars with me, and that's not how I eat in my daily life. We're an ingredient household, so my kids are always joking that if you want a snack, you have to make it. You have to go to the fridge. You need to make a little tray of cut up, vegetables and cheeses. And if you want to make a cookie, you're gonna have to make it. So I do that for my kids, and they already do that on their own. If they're hungry, they're like, okay, I'm gonna go cut up some apples and get some, different vegetables and things. So for me, that's what's been really helpful. And then another thing that I learned from my midwife is called Nora tea. So it's nettles, oat straw, raspberry leaf, and alfalfa. So if you look it up, it's Nora. And I always go to the herb bar and that's an old Austin institution that is moving, in fact. So I go there, I get all of the herbs that I need. And I feel like that's really made a difference. And I've also learned from trial and error to take my prenatal vitamins before I go to bed. It does not affect my sleep, but oh my gosh, when I take them in the morning, it really disincentivizes me from taking them. So I finally learned with my 6th pregnancy, and now I've never missed a dose because I just take them, I go to bed, I feel great in the morning. So that's been a game changer. And I think staying on top of all of my vitamins, because I take a whole host of, various things, taking those and being consistent, I think has given me really positive outcomes in terms of my nutritional status and really having the energy levels. So yeah, just eating when I'm hungry instead of putting it off and going for this big meal has been helpful.
Oh yeah. I always recommend that for anybody too. Just don't let yourself get too hungry when you're pregnant. The snacks, the exercise, you mentioned already, letting yourself sleep instead of fighting it, getting the sleep you need. I'm sure that's been really helpful too. And then you mentioned your midwife. So she said, don't run a marathon. What other kinds of things? So you're under midwifery care, which might surprise some people because sometimes age can be, can kick you into a high risk category. And then, maybe you risk out of certain kinds of care. So how is that being managed? What are you doing?
It's been pretty great. My lab work all came back within normal limits, so that didn't preclude me from her care. And I certainly have to take all of the same tests, like checking my blood pressure regularly. I just did for the past 5 days, checking my blood sugar. And so what's really great, I think, about midwifery care is that it's a lot of it is about you and really having a conversation with yourself about how committed do I want to be to this. So she's allowing me to, of course, do tests with her for blood sugar, but also to do it on my own. So I got myself $25. I got myself a blood glucose meter, and I've been checking it and really experimenting. And I did notice, even though mine are okay, they're at the high end of normal when I don't eat right. So I've been able to figure that out for myself, just generally, that I should be staying on top of this and not just assuming that because I've always been fine with my blood sugar, that that's okay. Because I was telling this to Janet, my business partner, I don't want to be at the high end of what's acceptable. I want to be perfect. I want my blood to be perfect. I don't want to have my blood sugar. So I have noticed making some nutritional changes, even within 24 hours, has had an impact. And I did want to talk about that today, is that those are some things you learn as you progress, that you don't want to do your blood glucose test the day after your baby shower where you ate 5 pieces of cake. Not a good idea. Like, I would have never have known that. You really want to prep for that. You want to eat really well, sleep really well. And if you don't, put that test off so that it's really indicative of what your lifestyle actually is. Don't do it after, you go to a wedding and you're exhausted, because that's not a real indicator of how your body is handling pregnancy. So just one of those tips that I think are really helpful, because looking at this and the variation over the past several days, there is a variation. And it definitely has to do with how you slept and ate the day before.
Yeah, and whether you exercise, that can have a big impact on your blood sugars too, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And nobody wants to trick the test. You want to really know. You don't want to trick the test. That's not what you're saying. I hear that. You're saying you want the test to show, what it's like when you're living normally, what your normal day-to-day is. And I think that's great advice. I have heard of people trying to trick the test. They don't want to fail the test, so they do certain things to try not to fail the test. You want to know if your blood sugars are off, so you can do something about it. So yeah, that's great. And I love that she's kind of, empowering you with that job of watching your own blood sugars and taking care of your health. I know that a lot of midwives might recommend certain nutritional kind of, like, they might have recommendations for that. And I know for a lot, I remember the protein. Are you doing a lot of high protein, especially if you're worried about those blood sugar levels?
Oh, yeah. So I do that anyway, just because I know that I have sustained energy. But I did notice that, on the day I told you where I had this exact thing happen to me. I had a Easter party, and that we were eating candy, and that's not my normal day-to-day life. The next morning, it was at the high end of normal, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes perfect sense. So typically I get up and have protein as my breakfast, and I have protein before I go to bed so that I can make it through the night without becoming exhausted, becoming hungry like at 3 a.m, which happens if I don't eat like a piece of cheese or something. So yeah. And I will say that at my age, I do also see a maternal fetal medicine specialist. And so for that reason, I think my midwife is really comfortable, because I'm seeing that person now every 2 weeks. And I've been seeing her from 12 weeks of pregnancy every single month to check growth. They're really making sure that everything's good with the baby. So because of that, my midwife is like, okay, This makes perfect sense, and you're being reasonable. So it's collaborative care, and maternal fetal medicine specialists are used to dealing with all types of providers. So they send her a fax report every time I have a meeting with them. I'll be seeing them tomorrow, and it gives me that peace of mind, her that peace of mind. So it's not that you're just kind of out there like the 23-year-old mom, which I've had the same midwife for all of my kids. So she's seen me be that mom and now be this mom. And I think it's a nice thing for her to see.
Yeah. And I think it's good to recognize that, not all midwives would, take you on as a client, but she knows you. She knows your history. She knows a lot about you. Just like any other care provider, sometimes they have different thresholds as far as like what they're comfortable managing, what they're able to manage. So, and you mentioned the maternal fetal medicine specialist, or the MFM, and that's an OB who went on to specialize even more in high risk pregnancy, and so they're obviously very capable of managing any kind of quote high risk situation, including being 45 years old. But it sounds like you don't have any other risk factors. Is that right?
Yeah.
You're healthy otherwise.
You're not allowed to participate in midwifery care, especially if it's a birth center or home birth, unless it is a very healthy pregnancy. So I think that's something people don't always realize, is that you cannot be on any medication for like blood pressure, blood sugar, anything like that kicks you out of midwifery care. But this is almost a direct quote from the MFM, is you can have a very healthy pregnancy at whatever age your body is able to get pregnant at, even if it's with reproductive technology. That yes, you can. Some of my healthiest patients are older than you. I was like, great. So she didn't seem to think it was an issue, other than keeping up with that surveillance of the baby, which I'm sure that they want everybody to do that. But because I'm older, I'm willingly participating, and I think that just shows my commitment to having a good outcome.
Since this is not your first go around, has there been anything or is there right now anything you feel like you still need to learn, or things that okay.
So the more you know about something, the more you realize you don't know, and the more you want to learn, especially if you care about it. I can say that I've had 5 deliveries that I didn't take medications, and I don't want to call them natural, because I think all deliveries are natural. You're giving birth on that day. That's really powerful. But I've had unmedicated deliveries that have been non-augmented, so there's no synthetic hormones involved, and they've all been term, meaning all of mine have been more than 39 weeks. So that said, my body has been really ready to deliver. And that's one of the cool parts of midwifery care, is that they really encourage your body to be prepared for delivery, because they can't really do inductions. So your body's ready. It's ready. And I became very cavalier about giving birth after the first 2. I was like, oh, I could do this 10 times in a day. And then I had a posterior baby, and I had back labor, and that just was a completely different ball game in terms of the sensations, and that humbled me. But I did it. I did not tear. And then I had 2 more kids, and they progressively got bigger. So those were also a bit humbling in terms of being able to really mentally stay on top of the sensations. And I realized that I really want something. So I actually came to you, Allie, and you recommended looking more deeply into hypnobirthing, which I'm doing now. And it's opening all new doorways for me in terms of how I want to approach the sensations of delivery. I've gotten through it, but I've gotten through it slightly traumatized. And just mentally like, wow, that was super intense. And I think it's because how I was thinking about it. I just want to get through it, and I have really fast delivery, so I'm like, okay, this is going to be intense, but I really want it to be longer. And I want to be able to tell my body, okay, hold on a second, we don't have to do it all at once. let's take a second. So that's my goal.
Okay.
Is to have a bit of a longer delivery this time, and to really allow other people to help me. And I think that's something that I need to do in my life in general. So every time you go through labor, no matter what, whether there's meds on board or, whatever, it's a trial, and you learn about yourself, and it's a rite of passage, and it's super powerful. And I want to learn from that experience. I relish it. I look forward to it. But now I feel like I'm looking forward to it in a way of testing my ability to ask for help, and testing my ability to confront difficult situations with an attitude of respect and welcome, versus just teeth gritting, I'm going to get through it. So yeah, I'm really excited to take further classes. Yeah, and my partner is also taking your partner prep class. He's super excited about that. So we're also taking a couples yoga class, and this is a cool thing. My 21-year-old son, my eldest son. So I didn't mention all of my kids are boys. So I have 7 boys.
Okay. I know. 21. I knew this, but every time I hear that, it just, yeah.
One is 20. I have an 18-year-old, a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, 8-year-old, and a 5-year-old. So the furthest end of the spectrum, the 8-year-old and the 5-year-old and the 21-year-old, they're all really excited to be my doulas. So they're so hyped. And my 21-year-old he's 6'3". He lives on his own. He has his own partner. But he already has a little fanny pack that he's preparing with everything he needs for the birth. So he's also taking him, and my 5-year-old and my 8-year-old, and whoever else wants to be involved. The other ones are a little bit all right, we'll come after. But the ones that want to be there are taking a class from the midwife. So she's coming over and teaching them okay, this is where it can be helpful for you to be. These are the things you might see and hear, and how you can be participatory, and it's okay to be afraid, and maybe step away if you want, things like that. So that's something that we as a family are prepping for. And something else I'm doing is preparing a precipitous delivery kit, because I've had a delivery that was under 30 minutes from start to finish before. And I'm really hoping that doesn't happen again. But if it does, I want to be prepared. So I'm going to have one in my car, have one in my partner's car, because there's that possibility that I would somehow be in transit and need to have this kit, or someone can just run to the car and grab it if I'm inside and the midwife doesn't arrive in time.
That's a great plan. I had one of those too. I had a very precipitous birth. Tell your 21-year-old he can come to the partner class too.
Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah. Oh, that was such a fun bonding thing for him and my partner. Good.
Yeah. I don't think the 8-year-old or the 5-year-old, but the 21-year-old. Yeah. Totally.
That would be cute. Okay. Yeah, things like that. Just, we're really getting it. I think it's so much cooler to have a baby when you're older. Not that it wasn't fun when I was 23, because it was, but I was really I approached it with such casual energy, and I did not really take any classes, and luckily things worked out.
Right.
But now I'm just doing so much more research, and I really like it.
And it's great to have those tools. And like you said, and some people hearing this, if they haven't had a baby yet, might be shocked to hear, I don't want it to be that fast. I want it to be slower. And I can relate to that. Both of mine were very fast. And sometimes when it goes that fast, it just feels like you get just swept away. You kind of lose control. It's hard to stay very present and very mindful. And I've heard this from people who've had multiple children, that once they kind of catch on to that idea and they learn some of those mindfulness strategies like you might learn in hypnobirthing, that you can kind of manage the way time flows a little bit better and remember more about this. And especially if you think this might be your last baby, like, just, I want to stay present. I want to remember how this baby gets here. My last births, I don't, like, it was just so fast and furious. I don't really remember much. So it can definitely be helpful for all of those reasons, but also just letting it take a little bit longer is not such a bad thing. It tends to feel, you don't want to be too long, but too short. There's a too short too. So I think that surprises a lot of people to hear it, though.
Oh, I did also want to mention that something I've been doing regularly every 2 weeks is seeing a massage therapist. And I think that has been, I know it's been a game changer, truly different in terms of how I feel in my body. And for me, I'm starting to realize my own personal experience of pregnancy, and it's with every pregnancy I've had, is that towards the third trimester, my nervous system gets overly activated, and I start to have more sensation in my skin. Like, my whole body I feel things more. I feel my clothes more. I get more agitated towards the evening when I'm tired, and this has really helped to have that massage, and it's flowed through to my partner. And that's also, of course, having a great partner has been awesome, because I get evening massages, and that really helps. Every evening he's like, let me massage your legs. We've learned techniques on how to move lymph through the body and keep me from getting swollen. And that's something the midwife said, is like, stay on top of this, because once swelling starts, it's really hard to reverse it. But avoiding it from starting to begin with is helpful, and you can do things to avoid it. Obviously, diet related, but also related to having ongoing massage. So that's something I think I wouldn't have been able to financially access that as a younger mom. So there's many advantages to being older.
Yeah, daily massage is a plus. Adding the plus in the pros category for sure. Also, and I'm sure you know this, but one of the positive statistics for being an older mom is higher breastfeeding rates.
Yeah, you're more educated to know that we have better health outcomes, and that is the truth. That it's very common, especially in the United States, where formula can be the norm for many communities, to write this off as a personal choice. And ultimately, everything is a personal choice, but this is also a public health issue. We have better health outcomes when for ourselves when we breastfeed as mothers, and our babies have better health outcomes, and that cannot be disputed. Obviously, all babies need to eat, so that we have wonderful alternatives to human milk that can be very healthy for kids. But when we look at large populations, we see that the health outcomes, of course, for humans when they have human milk, the health outcomes are better. And so you just have more time to be more wise and to really be ready to take on anything. I really like getting older, so I'm in. I don't want to miss a birthday, and I'm really proud every time I get 1 year older, because I'm better.
Thank you for saying that, because I'm older than you.
So, good. I aspire to.
Yes. So you've already mentioned some things that you're planning differently for your birth, and then you kind of hinted a little bit at this idea of asking for help, being better about asking for help. How about postpartum? I mean, you're going to have 8 children. So what kind of postpartum planning are you doing? And is it any different from previous babies?
So the great thing about having a big family is that they can help because they're not all little babies at the same time. And especially when you have 8, you typically have older kids as well. And so those kids are all signing up for various duties. So some of them are learning how to just make basic foods so that they can make food for people. My partner is learning, we're really nerding out on the Chinese confinement.
Mm-hmm.
And my eldest son's girlfriend is Chinese and her mom's a chef. So we've been learning about some of the traditional herbs and postpartum foods for a traditional Chinese confinement. And I think I'm going to, of course, do a mashup because that's what we do. I'm going to do some Ayurvedic approach foods and kind of throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. But at this point, I don't feel like I have to do it all. I have all of my kids helping and their friends, and I have a big community of women that want to support me. So for my baby shower, for example, we're calling it a blessing way, which is it is a traditional approach to honoring the family when a new baby is coming. And in essence, people come with a blessing for the baby. And whether it be a song or a poem or just a quote that they love or something heartfelt, from their heart about what their commitment is to that kid and to that family. And at that time, what we're not asking for, gifts in the traditional sense, but more for participation, because we want our families to be involved and get to support us in that process so that we can teach the next generation how that's done. I didn't know when my mom had a baby how it was done because we were really isolated from our family due to the Caribbean diaspora. Like we just didn't, we were, Caribbean people in New York, and we lost those the traditional approach to supporting one another. And I heard that one of my family members was a midwife, so I think that's how I got involved in this. But we just don't have connection to them anymore. So that said, I want to change that, and I feel like little by little I have been doing that with showing my kids that I am going to stay in bed. I am going to need help. And my partner is going to help me and my community is. And this time we're doing it a little bit more structured. So I'm having some foods, not just me like cooking and putting stuff away, but my entire community cooking and putting stuff away so we can just go and put stuff in the oven or throw it in the crock pot. So yeah,
I'll bring you food. I'm
yeah.
going to bring food because I make food. Okay.
Good. I'm glad to see that. That's like the most helpful thing because then, it's a community really is needed. And so it's totally different. I used to think I needed all these things and then I never used the things.
The things you got at the baby showers, you mean? Yeah. Yeah, I think you learn that after a go round or two, and what's really most important. And I love the idea. I think blessing ways are kind of a Native American tradition, right? Kind of based on that. And I've been to a couple of those, and it's wonderful. I wish, like, even if you want to have a traditional baby shower, so you can get some stuff that you need, which is great, but like to add in some of those elements of a blessing way, because like you said, it's, blessings for the baby, but also blessings for you. And usually, the gifts include like something for you and for you to take care of yourself while you're pregnant and postpartum. And so, cause sometimes that gets forgotten in the our culture's baby shower, it's baby stuff, right? But what about you, right? It's like you said, a rite of passage.
Yeah, well, be expecting, Janet is going to be sending out invites, so be expecting yours. It's June, I think, 22nd
Okay.
or 20. We're figuring it out. But yeah, that's been an evolution and something that it reflects just where I've been at in my mothering from beginning to now. It's completely different how I approach that.
Yeah. I love that you're mentioning this. A lot of people will never have heard of that, but might like it if they look it up, for sure.
Because, the stuff, everybody cries.
I cry every time so much. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be anything, that you're uncomfortable with. It's not like you're, necessarily praying or anything like that. You're just all really bringing an intention, and a promise to that baby about either this moment, how you're showing up, or in future, what you wish for them, what your
Right.
hopes and dreams are for them. It's really cool. And that family.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm super looking forward to it. And it's going to be a pool party. So everybody gets
Everybody gets wet. And these things, some of them have to do with, you knowing what it's been like before, but also just, the wisdom that comes with age. So even if someone has never had a child before, they might recognize how they do need other people because they've gone through some other things in life. And so they might be preparing a little bit better for that postpartum time. I love I don't like to call it the confinement, but the sitting month or whatever you want to call it. I did an interview with Jane Yu about that. So that's an article that if anybody wants to go back and look that up, what that is. When Lauren said the confinement, which is just basically like taking care of yourself really well for that first 6 weeks or so, postpartum. And a lot of it has to do with eating well and other things, but some of the Asian traditions around this include, a lot of things that are really helpful and nurturing and things that we don't do well enough for ourselves usually here. So do you have any new fears? I mean, any fears that maybe have come up related to age or just...
Oh yeah. Oh yes. I don't want to be that old mom that's out of touch. My kid is a teenager and they're like, your parents are so old. Like,
okay.
because I hear my kids make fun of their friends who have really, really old parents. I'm like, you understand that I'm going to be one of the oldest parents to this baby when they're in high school, and they're like, "It's not going to you, Mom." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." Like, yeah, it is. So it's going to challenge me to like stay up with the current, vernacular, and really be engaged and have my other kids school me, which is what I typically do anyway. Like I could turn right now into like middle school language and probably would not. You because you have a middle schooler, but a lot of people would have no clue what I'm talking about. So it's just going to challenge me to stay current and to really listen. So that's one of my fears, obviously dying when my kid needs me and is really young. So I'm working to make that not happen if I can avoid it. But I mean, real talk is that I've created a will where I didn't have one when I was, having my first 2, 3, 4 kids. But now I have one, and it's a real conversation that I have with my partner. It's like, what happens if we both die? Like, not just me or you. What happens if both of us died? Who do we want to have this kid? And we already have that. We will have that done by the time baby's coming, because I've already had that set up with my other kids. So,
yeah.
I mean, these are conversations I think everybody should have, but as you become older and wiser and actually have friends that are getting older and see what their outcomes are, you're like, okay, whoa. I don't want this all to fall on my 16-year-old, theoretically. So, yeah,
Okay.
that's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or people having their first babies, they don't have older children. And so that's something that you surprised me. I was thinking like fears around your birth or your pregnancy, but you're thinking way ahead. You're thinking like what it's going to be like being an older mom to an older child. And yeah, I imagine that would be something to think about.
One of the statistics that I read recently about the increased risk of stillbirth in older patients, they're like, it's a 2 times the increased risk. Okay, well, we're going from 0.17 to 0.38. So these are still very, very, very low numbers. So yes, if you look at, like with any statistics, you're going to want to look at what that actually means. What's the real number behind that statistic? So yes, technically you're close to 2 times as likely to have this happen. However, if it's less than 0.5% of this happening, then that's a little bit sensationalized in terms of what the relative and real risk of having this happen are. And I know I wouldn't feel comfortable even going to an obstetrician if I wasn't also seeing the MFM who has specialized skill in looking at kids and seeing if there's any markers for, and I'm talking about unborn kids, looking at them and seeing like, do they have amniotic fluid sufficiently? How is this kiddo turning out? And if anything looks askew, I'm going to do something about it. And of course they're going to do something about it.
Yeah.
So that I'm not as concerned with as just the long-term implications of having a baby older. Yeah, I think it's going to actually make me stronger in the long run because I'll just have to keep up with that kid.
Yeah. They keep you young. They do, don't they, though? I mean, for sure. For sure. I have a lot of things go now that my kids are older and I don't have to be chasing them around and getting up with them in the middle of the night and all that stuff. So I agree. I think it's probably a great youth tonic. And I love that you said that because, a lot of people do focus on the right now, on the pregnancy, on the birth, and hearing statistics. Like you said, your risk doubles, or you're 100% more likely to have this thing. And I've written several articles where we talk about what's relative risk versus absolute risk. And those are two very, very different things. Saying your risk is doubled sounds terrifying. But like you said, saying that your risk goes from, 0.17% to 0.34% doesn't sound so bad. Like, wait, my risk of stillbirth is 0.34%?
Yeah.
That's very small, right? So even though I'm 45.
Yeah.
My risk is.
Yeah, it's not, if it was 20 times the risk, I'd be like, oh, wow, okay, we got to look into this.
Right.
But I'm not going to completely stress about it. I have to trust that my providers are doing everything that they can. And that's why we have all of this surveillance and we're checking, all of these things. We're looking for protein in urine. We're doing all of that. Yeah.
And I'm sure that having the MFM reassuring you the way they are, saying things like what you mentioned, that like, oh, you're doing great, everything's going to be fine. I've had older patients than you with great outcomes, and I'm sure that's very reassuring too. So you're doing your homework, you're looking at the true statistics, you're digging around, and you've got a great care team, it sounds like. So.
Yes, absolutely. I will say some of the things, not that it's hurt my feelings, because I believe that you're in control of your feelings. And that's another thing about being an older mom, is I've learned that. So I'm able to relay that to my kids now, is like, hey, you actually have complete control about how you're feeling right now and how you respond to things. Not to say that I always have control, but I have had some instances in this pregnancy where I've had to really self-reflect and wonder like why I was so triggered by what people said. And a lot of it has been around like, oh my gosh, you're going to do that again. Or like, you're so old now. Like, how are you going to, weren't you excited to like travel and like, get your kids out of the house? And I really think that a lot of these things are rooted in patriarchy and in having this view that you're not free until, your kids are out of the house, or you can just leave on a dime. And I travel with all of my kids a lot. And I look forward to those challenges. So for me, it's been a lesson in like, wow, what kind of life do I want to be living in my 50s and beyond? Like, am I going to become sedentary or continue to travel with all of my kids? So for me, it's been a no-brainer. Like, yes, this is a great idea. I love babies. I love having kids in my life. But if the societal value is in, not having kids and them being a drain, then that can certainly affect how people approach you as a quote older mom. Like, oh my gosh, you're going to, just be never sleeping again. Well, fact is, I feel like I never get more sleep than when I have a newborn. It's boring. All they want to do is sleep. That's the part that's actually stressing me out, is like the amount of sleep I'm going to have to get, the amount of rest I'm going to have to take, because I don't like sleeping and resting. And
I
that's
know that about you.
like, hurry up and grow up so we can like go on a trip. So I'm just like, I really want to get past these first few months so we can go do some adventures.
So you can play with me.
Yeah.
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 Well, like I said, I think really it is a youth tonic. It was for me, even having babies at a younger age. I felt like it helped me like feel like a kid again. And so I'm with you. I don't look forward to the day that my kids are gone and so grown that they don't want to play with me anymore. I definitely think you've got a great attitude for that. And so it's perfect that you're having another baby.
I agree. I feel really lucky. I just think you're doing awesome, just like any other parent, but that you're probably more prepared in many spiritual and social ways than you may have thought, because you've already had that lived experience of being part of society and dealing with challenging things. And I think it's a blessing for your baby, certainly, and a blessing for you that it, like you were saying, that it keeps you young. So it's a great thing, despite what people say. And really, that's about their fear of, I think, basically of death, that they put that on you. But it's really you. I think there's so much hope in having a baby when you're older, that it's showing that, yes, I'm all in it with humanity and society, and I'm going to continue to have this hope that we collectively are able to have little children in our midst and care for them in a loving and communal, beautiful way. So I think you're doing really important things.